Hi everyone, we're
We're Spookily Games. My name is Weston. This is Sheehan Ahmed. Today we'll be talking about Left on Red and the European Bug. Left on Red is a 2D platformer game about texting your crush over quarantine. We had some major success over Steam and learned some interesting insights by publishing on such a large platform with so many people. One of them being the European bug that we've called it, which was a game-breaking bug that we discovered. But first, we'll talk about a little bit about Left on Red. Left on Red, like I said, is a 2D platformer about texting your crush over quarantine. It experiments with narrative by telling a multi-choice narrative where the player chooses the path they want to take with the relationship with the person they have. There's some more layers to that. It's a platformer, so if you miss a jump, you send a wrong text, that decision is permanent, etc. So that's the basis of Left on Red. Here's some gameplay of it. It's a very simplistic game where the controls are WASD and jump, and you chat as you would on iOS Messenger.
We actually never got sued for this.
Not yet.
Not yet.
Now we will, because we're making a video. It's okay.
So yeah, as you can see, there's different platforms, and you choose what you say by jumping to the platform. And sometimes there are harder jumps, or some jumps are harder than others, and that's because some things are harder to say than other things.
So we can do a reenactment now of.
Okay.
So I was in my house in LA, and he was in Portland. And
I was in my house in Portland,
having one of our classic late night talks. And dude, what if we made a game about texting someone during quarantine?
No, that's stupid.
No, you're stupid.
Okay, let's make it.
Okay, let's make it. And then we made the game.
So we first put out the game on itch, and we got a lot of positive reception from people, which was really cool. They said that they really like the idea of it. Mainly people really love the aesthetic of jumping from platform to platform, which represented messages. But some of our users had a game-killing bug where they would, on the first text, they would text the other person, and it would just freeze undelivered, right? Now, there are people in the real world who text someone and get left undelivered indefinitely, but that isn't an experience we wanted to recreate in Left on Red.
So what we figured out was it was only affecting a certain part of our demographic, right? I was getting when I published on itch, we didn't get that many. We didn't get that many people emailing us or telling us that it was breaking the game. So we figured that it was only affecting such a small portion that it was something out of our control because we were unable to replicate the bug.
That was the important thing. We could not replicate the bug. Anytime we tried it on our machines, the game worked perfectly without a hitch.
Mm-hmm. So itch, about 95% of the player base is United States of America. However, when we expanded to Steam, I don't know.
So this is when we decided that everything was fine. Yeah. Okay, now you can say it. So the problem was that deciding that 5% is having this issue is not a big issue is pretty bad, because that 5%, what that really means, one, itch is mainly United States, but also that 5% just means 1 out of 20 people who played our game on itch, right? That 5% ballooned up to 50% when we hit Steam. So that is half of our player base are having a game-breaking bug that does not let them expand beyond or progress beyond the first text, right? So the moral of the story here is to never trust small sample sizes. If something is happening to just 1 out of 20 players on one platform, that doesn't mean that when your game gets bigger, it's going to that problem is just going to magically go away, right? And another thing to remember here is people usually only drop reviews if they have a massively positive or massively negative experience with your game. And getting left undelivered is a pretty negative experience. So that drove a lot of people to leave negative responses, which started to make us panic.
So yeah, we started getting review bombed, and we started freaking out. Well, I started freaking out. You were kind of. So I started freaking out. I got so many emails, and we got so many review bombs, and we just within the first 48 hours of releasing the game on Steam. Later, we realized. So should I talk about like the actual story now? Do you have more slides?
Yeah, good for space.
Okay. So I started to notice a trend with the reviews and the emails I was getting, which was they were all either broken English or given or in another language. Also, on our website, Left and Red Game, ga.me, Left and Red Game, when you submit a contact form, it actually tells you the IP address of the person who sent it. And
so
when I was looking
IP
at those,
tracks our fans.
Exactly. Is that illegal? No, we have a cookie disclaimer. Anyways, so we were able to see the IP address of those people, and we started to notice that there was some sort of pattern where no one in the United States was having this problem, no one in Canada was having this problem, and then some European countries having this problem, some European countries were not having this problem. Some African countries were, some African countries were not, etc. We did some research onto what this bug could possibly be, and we realized that it was something to do with.
Everybody drop Big Pog Bunny 83 in the chat, please.
Yes, thank you to Bunny 83 on GitHub, of course. GitHub, my favorite. GitHub. So we saw this user post from Bunny 83. Who you have to get rid of that, or else they can't see the presentation.
Thank you, Big Pug. Oh, they can't? Okay, all right. Shit.
Okay, so we saw this this post on Unity forum by Bunny83 who talked. Was it Stack Overflow?
Yeah.
Okay. Stack Overflow about parsing a string. So when you parse a string, the decimal separator is a period for United States operating systems or Americanized operating systems, whereas in other countries it's actually a comma. So instead of 2.00 seconds to wait for 2 seconds after he writes or deletes a text, it's waiting 2.00 seconds, which can either translate to 200 seconds or translate to a null reference exception, where it cannot
just freezes.
Exactly, the game just freezes it and it doesn't go on anytime. So this is why sometimes it was randomly stopping some places, and other places it was not stopping.
The reason this doesn't happen for like anytime you have a number in your game is because most of that gets compiled down into machine code. But in Left on Red, we had a parsing system where we had our own like kind of custom scripting language for how we wanted text to play out. Like we wanted parts where the main character would like type something out, but then like reconsider what they were thinking and then delete it and type something else instead to show like what's going on in his head, like what he really wants to say but doesn't actually end up saying. And to do that, we made this custom solution where we would like type things out, but then have like delete equals 5. So like delete the last 5 seconds or last 5 characters, and then wait 2 seconds before you start texting again. And because it's reading that at runtime, however the operating system will read that number will determine how like the game actually gets played, right? So if you're in a different country where a comma is actually a period and a period is a comma, then you get Left on Red for 2 hours. And yeah.
So on the screen you can see the actual change in the code we had, which had to do with globalization, our system globalization, culture info, and variant culture, which basically reads the system's globalization.
It just defaults it to be invariant, which I think invariant means American, which, you know, there's something to be said there, but it's a topic for another time. Yeah, so half a line of code fixed a game-breaking bug for 50% of our player base, which is the kind of thing you hear about but don't think actually ends up happening. But, you know, what can you do?
Yeah, so after that, we got very positive reviews, as opposed to we had mixed in the very beginning. And I reached out to everyone who gave a negative review and said, hey,
Why do you not like
Pourquoi
the
je
red?
je ne sais pas me constituer les bourgeons? And they said, okay, d'accord, and they changed their review to a positive one.
The other big moral of the story here is within legal boundaries, collect as much data as you can about your players, because that is where, one, you're going to figure out how to fix your game for very specific use cases, and two, you're going to figure out how to make your game better if you just know more about how your players are interacting with your game, what like they're doing in very specific areas. So yeah, or like who they are as people, right? Like what's their favorite color? That's a good one to know.
Kind of fucked up.
You can make your game more of that color. You know, I don't make the rules.
So I think the overarching moral of the story is that there's a logical explanation to most bugs. We struggled with this bug for a lot, and we dismissed it, and then luckily we were able to fix it. But if this was something more complex than a single line of code, this may have been a much larger issue, because we did release it without testing it well. So here are some reviews that we get now, which is funny because there's really the old reviews are kind of the same. Just some are positive and some are negative, as in like the thumbs or thumbs down. Some people are.
There's some reviews that say the exact same thing, but one of them is positive, one of them is negative.
Exactly.
Like we've seen so many where the review is just, this guy is such a simp, and some of them are positive and some of them are negative.
Yeah.
What's funny about this one is this person played for 0.2 hours and said the review, "This is the most dry conversation I've ever had." But then they went back and finished the game, as you can see.
Out of courtesy.
Yeah, out of courtesy.
So we were able to rack up over 250,000 downloads over Steam and itch by people all over the globe. People, simps all over the globe, and including Iceland, yeah.
Which is the location of our next game from Spookalele Games, Iceland.
Thank you, Sheehan. Some other funny bug we had was a drunk texting bug.
It read the text twice and typed everything twice.
Yeah, I read the text twice, and
this one actually took me a while. I don't know whether it was because it was double initializing.
We had some other minor bugs, such as multi-loading of scenes and stuff like that, but that's less exciting.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. There's a bug with the sound that's still.
Yeah, Sheehan has not fixed a bug with the sound. That is we're actually getting quite a few negative reviews because of that, but what are you going to do? Mm-hmm. Overall, we learned, I'll just reiterate, a small bug can really hurt you in the long run. People are very, very critical. People just launch the game, say game is bad, does not work, and then give a negative review. Instead of, and some people were nice. They email me and say, "Hi, I'm from Sweden and I want to help you. The game does not work. Help me." Initially, we had thought that it had something to do with an operating system, as in like a
older operating system.
An older operating system or worse graphics card, something with update versus fixed update.
Yeah.
But I got the worst computer I could possibly find, and I could not replicate the bug.
That's a good place to look first, though. Like, look if older operating systems are having problems, because like especially with 32 and 64, there can be some like weirdness that happens there.
And above all, we learned, let's say this together, never ship on Linux.
Oh, I didn't know you were going to say that.
Okay.
Never ship on Linux.
Never ship on Linux is not worth it.
We had one guy who like texted us when we said we were going to ship on Linux and said, "I'm so happy they're shipping on Linux. Nobody makes any games for Linux." And then we took our game off of Linux because we realized developing for Linux is hell. And then he texted us like, "Hey, what happened to the Linux build?" And we left him on red.
Boom. The game exceeds reality.
I know.
What can I
Just
say?
like
Stop.
Any good game.
Don't say that.
What?
Okay,
Sorry. Let's look at chat. I wonder if there's questions.
Yes, thank you very much. If you have any questions, if you want to hear Piano Man,
No, not
maybe just
we'll do that at the end.
Ailish, we did not actually leave the Linux guy in red.
Sorry, Linux guy.
I told him that It's because initially, so we built it for Windows, and then I ported it to Mac, which was an awful process itself. So then porting that to Linux again would have been awful because it's a whole different experience porting different platforms when you have a game at that scale.
How do we go back to,
that was great. That was
Mitch?
I think y'all got a question in the chat from Jonathan. So how would you recommend getting started in game development?
So, well, we can talk about how we kind of got started. Okay. So yeah, I also got started on Click Team Fusion. Ran around some other game engines. Yeah, I did.
Oh, I didn't know that.
And eventually, you came to Unity and Unreal. How you get started is you're passionate about an idea, you're passionate about a game that you play, and you want to kind of recreate it yourself and put your own spin on it. So that's what I kind of did. Are we still like robots?
You're good now. Yeah.
Oh, wonderful.
Cool.
Okay, sorry.
I think a good thing to do is find a game that you like. Hopefully it's like a simple game. For me, it was Cave Story, which is like a platformer like Mario, but you can shoot, and try to recreate it. Because number one, the cool thing about learning games outside of like programming is that like if you just take programming classes, they're really, really boring. Like if you learn how to do Hello World and then loops and stuff, it's just boring. Whereas if you're making a game that you love, every small step you take to get you towards that goal, like it's just really motivating. Like once you see your character moving around and once you can jump and once you can shoot, it's like every step is a little like cookie reward for you.
It's the feedback.
Yeah, the feedback of like
you get.
learning programming through games, I think is the difference for a lot of people between like loving programming and hating programming. Because honestly, I think if your first introduction to programming is a class, it might just kill your enthusiasm for it as a whole.
Mm-hmm. So the best way to get started, think of something you want to make, try to put it down to the most simple system that it can be, and then type in Unity, tutorial, inventory system, or Unreal. Do Unreal. That's much better.
No.
Yeah, and use Brackeys.
Brackeys, Rick, F in the chat for Brackeys, please.
Yes, Brackeys has quit. Today's a very sad day. Thank you very much. But his tutorials will still be there forever.
His tutorials are amazing.
They're immortal, unlike him. Yes, I know. Brad Brackeys has quit.
Is this what being a streamer is like? This is so fun.
Okay. But yes, I hope that answers your question. And reach out to friends,
Yeah. Nobody can be good at every aspect of game design because there's so much that goes into it. There's art, there's writing, there's programming. If you find friends who like they probably are interested in a different like school of game development than you, then you can kind of bounce off each other, right? Like especially in high school, it was just super fun to like find a friend who's into art but wasn't really into programming, and then like do a game jam together. Game jams are also another.
Yeah, hackathons is where I really learned about teamwork and stuff like that. And there's plenty of those online. Yes, game jams. There's plenty of those online. Especially right now, lots of COVID game jams going on.
Yeah.
Where you kind of join Discords and you find teams and stuff like that, or Slacks. And there's stuff that's really niche and more broad and stuff like that.
They also teach you how to finish games, which is a really important skill.
Mm-hmm.
It's a lot of people fall into the trap of just adding feature and then so knowing how to close out your games and knowing when it's done is a really good skill to have. For sure.
I'll say it out loud. There are many aspects to game development, so even if you're not strictly interested in programming or art or music, there are so many other things you can do to exercise your creative game dev skills in other ways, especially in jams. Yep, there's plenty of engines. Game Maker, Godot, these engines, you don't need literally any programming knowledge, which seems to be the barrier to entry for a lot of beginning game developers.
Yeah.
And that's where I came from as well, and then you kind of learn. Yes, you want to. It's a natural process where you want to expand your potential for creating games that Game Maker just cuts off at some point. Unless you're Undertale.
You need to know the logic, and you can learn the logic anywhere, right? Like a lot of game developers like to look down on beginner engines, like Game Maker, but that's stupid. Like Game Maker was used to make Hyper Light Drifter and Undertale, right? I mean, like Undertale's the biggest indie game in a while, I think. So it's not like any engine is better or worse than other ones. They're just like they're good at different things. And at the end of the day, it's just a tool, right? And the tool does not make the artist.
Okay, this is a good question. Why did we choose Unity for Left on Red?
Okay.
So Unreal is really good at Fortnite. And by what I mean by that is they literally are making the engine of Unreal to make games like Fortnite. And that extrapolates to many other genres. A game I'm making right now, it's a narrative experience, but it's a walking simulator. So I'm using Unreal because I really like the lighting engine and stuff that they can do there. It's very powerful. Unreal is so much better in graphics and rendering. Thank you, Bob.
Yeah, that's right.
Unity Unreal, you want to make a 2D game, it's kind of cringe. It's not built for that. You can, but why would you do that? It's significantly harder than doing it in Unity.
There's some things that between the two engines, like you pick one, and there's literally no use case where you pick the other one. If you're making a 2D game, you pick Unity. There's no reason ever that like a 2D you would want to make a 2D game in Unreal. If you're making a game where your priority is photorealistic graphics, and it's like a shooter or something, I can think of very little reasons to pick Unity.
You would pick Unity because you're more comfortable in Unity. So
Probably.
It is about personal preference to an extent.
Yeah.
I have made my 2D games in Unreal.
The cat game.
Stop, please. Okay. All right now. But Unity is superior for 2D games in general, which is why we chose Left on Red to be in Unity. Yes.
Oh yeah, we did say tools doesn't matter. That's true.
Yeah.
They don't, because even if we say like never make a 2D game in Unreal, there's probably someone out there who could make a killer 2D game in Unreal. I don't know. I think I'd say just pick an engine based on what you think your priorities are. If your priorities are making photorealistic games that are probably first-person experiences, then you should probably try to start learning Unreal. If you're not so sure, I think like a good multi-purpose tool is Unity, because you can make most games in Unity. It's just that like other engines might be better at doing specific things. So yeah.
All games are inspired by real life or by experiences that you have. Those are, at least the best games are. So is it a word for word transcription? Absolutely not. But it's about.
Well, most gamers are simps, and we decided to target an audience. You know,
Accidentally.
Yeah, it was.
The response was actually incredible. I got so many emails saying, "This is my life.
Yeah.
You've helped me cope with quarantine. That you've encapsulated what it meant to feel so alone and distanced." I got this one actually recently saying I've been in a long distance relationship for a really long time, and my girlfriend and I both played this, and it made us so happy, you know. So that's really lovely to see how some art you create can affect
I think that's
people.
the point. That's the point of making games. That's the point of making art in general. Where I think like, I don't know, those emails are really good. Where like you can recreate an experience for someone, or at least like give someone an escape for a short period of time, even if it's just a little 40-minute visual game, right? Or a narrative game.
Also, Crank Gameplays.
Crank Gameplays.
A friend of Markiplier. You may know him. Played our game on his YouTube channel.
Yeah.
That was fun.
Did Crank cry? I forgot.
Yeah, Crank cried.
Crank. We made Crank cry, dude.
Crank cried.
All the 8-year-olds are gonna come for us.
Yeah. Thank you, David. It's a very, I mean, it's a very timely game, right? It's the log line. It's March of 2020. You were just sent home from university because of the coronavirus. You have a few small regrets, mainly not telling someone how you really feel. And I think that resonates with a lot of people. Yeah. or did, and still does. And as time goes on, it will serve as sort of a time capsule rather than
Yeah.
and at some point it will be fiction, purely fiction. Mhm.
Actually, building off of that, I just thought of something. So, given the fact that this game is like obviously kind of set in like the now, like where we are during that coronavirus period, and a lot of the emotion is heightened by the fact that we are all still in quarantine, still kind of like going through it. So, how, like, what was your timeline in making the game? How fast did you come together with the concept and like start pieces together in order to get it out in just like while the pandemic and everything is still happening?
That was back when we thought that this would all be over soon, so we thought we
Well,
gotta get it
that's
out.
not true. That's not true. That's not true. The development was about a month to a month and a half. I worked like 12-hour days writing and putting it in the engine. I did feel a sense of urgency to get it out as soon as possible, but I didn't want to mess up, so we did a soft release on itch, we did another soft release on itch, and then we did the full release on Steam. We had the idea in April, and we released it in May 19th. That's right. So it was about a month of grueling work. And yeah, there was a. I want to get it out as soon as possible because the game actually ends in September, or no, it ends after. It ends in the future when we published it. It starts March 12th and extends to the future. So I kind of had to guess what would happen in the future.
We guessed wrong.
Well, we guessed it's right. I mean, quarantine still exists in the game, and in the end, I did some research on that sort of stuff. But yeah, so there was like I said, a crushing sense of reality that I wanted to get out as soon as possible to hit as many people that were feeling the same emotion that I was feeling. All those late nights listening to Mad World.
And back to Mark. How long did it take us to make the game? A month with.
Let me get you an actual date. It was about a month to a month and a half. We shipped on May 19th.
Because we did like 2 weeks of work upkeeping after, like bug fixing stuff that our users were having.
April. Yeah, started about April 16th. So it was about a month of a full job.
So thank you so much for everyone for coming today. Thank you again, Sheehan and Weston. That was a really good talk, and it was really informative, and we all really enjoy hearing about your game. And you're doing great.